everybody, happy Valentine's Day to you prematurely. It's right around the corner, or happy February to you. And we got an exciting podcast for you. Today I'm joined by Sean again, my partner in crime. And so today we're really going to talk to you about agentic agents. And there's this really, some people understand it, and maybe they understand it at a high level, and other people understand it in a very complicated way, but sometimes they overcomplicate it in some use case. So we're going to try to demystify all of that in today's show. And so to do that, I'm going to bring up a slide, and we'll use the slideshow as a presenter. And we got a couple of different use cases for you, but this is Mr. Agent Man that we've got here to try to help tell the story of what it is that we're going to be talking about. And so this is really about understanding the next generation of conversational AI. And I might even go so far as to add beyond just conversational AI. This actually is applicable to deploying an orchestration of a bunch of agents and workflows and things that you do behind the scenes that maybe never shows up in a chat experience, but it still is very, very powerful for AI. And so let's moving on into the first slide. I'm going to hand this over to Sean and ask him to kind of walk us through what agentic AI is and all of the NVIDIA stuff that goes along with it.
So everybody should remember when conversational AI came on the scene, 2020, 2021, even before that, some of us own Alexas out there or Siri, and we all understand what conversational AI is about. Well, then the chat bot came, right? And people have been building chat bots for 18 months. Maybe even longer without AI. So Agentic AI is something that is a term everyone's using, and it's, as every other marketing term now, it is completely abused, right? I don't know what it did and why its parents didn't take care of it, but the end of the day is that's the problem with this term. So NVIDIA is saying, hey, it's an AI agent that uses large language models and actions. This is grossly simplified because this could be just any AI agent. So what I like to think about things is really it's an agent of agents of agents. So imagine, if you will, the journey that anybody will go on, any kind of experience, whether it is going to Disneyland or if you're going to fill out a loan application. Those are experiences. And those experiences, if you consider it as a race, and that each robot in this race or virtual agent can do one thing, and then you have an orchestrator that is actually running the race, and they're handing that baton off between each agent to accomplish the end result. So, I like to say all the time, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And this is a very, very common concept that we should all be very familiar with, because it's microservices. If you have been around for the last 10 to 15 years, you've probably heard things such as Open API, not OpenAI, Open API, and microservices. So that when you have an experience that you want to create, you'll have an API gateway, and that gateway will register several different RESTful APIs, and then you'll have a web app which will go through those different microservices. And so this web app is a API of APIs. Just like Agentic AI strategy is an AI of multiple AIs, right? And the reason why this is so important is that you can make a very, very smart contextual bot that does one thing really well, that has guardrails really well, and can be used in multiple different experiences. And then you'll have an orchestrator, in this case, a web app bot, that will handle that particular brand. So again, if you have a channel for a web browser, you can put in voice, you could put in video, you can put in text. If you have a mobile voice, experience, you want to keep the conversation short and to the point. If you have a text, you're going to have very few words, right? So the end of the day is this makes all the sense of the world to be able to do. So, David, does that help understand, comparing agionic to microservices?
Yeah, it does. And so for some of the leaders out there that I've spoken with in the past, some of the nomenclature that we're using here in the couple of slides still might not 100% resonate with those folks, especially if they're still maybe watching the podcast, they're hearing about it, and they're seeing this for the first time. One of the analogies that I give that seems to work extremely well is when you think about these agents, think about what you do in your business, or think about how you run and manage your business, right? You have different departments, and then you hire people to do certain roles or tasks or jobs in those departments. And when you hear the word agent, maybe just think of it as an employee that does not only, all the things that they do, because nowadays employees do, they wear 6 different hats, right? But an employee wearing one hat, and they do that one thing only. You hire them just for that purpose. There's so much work. That's all they do all day. And so when you frame it in that context, sometimes the light bulb seems to click for various leaders, and they're like, oh, so that's what that is. And I'm like, yeah, and guess what? You're the orchestrator, because you're the one that has the vision. You're the one that knows who needs to do what, where, why, and when. You have an understanding of your business, your company, and the execution steps that it needs to happen. And ultimately where your goal is, where you want to take it. And so that's exactly what an orchestrator does. And it gets a little bit maybe more complicated in code, but not so much. It's no different than your business. You're constantly having to pivot. But this is where I think the big takeaway for folks to understand is that as your business changes, the only thing you need to do is change your orchestrating logic in how the execution steps happen, because maybe the step doesn't necessarily change. Very rarely will something be so ground shattering, earth breaking, or whatever the word is, that you'll have to redo an agent to do that particular task. But 9 times out of 10, it's at the orchestration layer. Either we need to add a new agent, we need to take away an agent, or we need to fire them off in a different sequence, or insert something to maybe process optimize whatever it is that you're doing. So many times people overthink it. And the only thing I would tell you is just don't overthink it. Just an agent is a role, it's a task, and that's it. Leave it at that, and plain and simple. So, but for the technical folks out there, this should make what we've got on screen absolute 100% sense.
Yeah. So, you can look at this as mass manufacturing, right? Assembly line, where, you can have different parts of the line and move it around to create new. But where I think the ball is going, or as Gretzky once said, follow where the puck is going to be, is around these type of agionic systems. Yeah. Now, today, this isn't what people are doing, right? They are thinking of this right here, where they're like, oh, we're going to create an agent that does everything.
Boil the ocean.
And this is why people have problems with guardrails, right? Again, imagine, if you will, is it easier to take 5 people and teach them everything that they need to do and the thousands and thousands of steps they need to do? Or is it better to specialize and break that up and divide and conquer? So this is really where I am seeing agionic solutions to be, is you're going to specialize just like you do with individuals. And a lot of people get really confused. Wow, this AI agent, this bot has all these different pieces. No, it doesn't. A bot has 2 pieces. 1, it has an education, and 2, it has instructions. So just like a human being that you would pull up the streets and say, okay, here's the job you need to do. You will pick up the phone, answer any questions to the best of your ability. Those are the instructions. Now, here, I will teach you for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, for 3 months, and teach you all the things that you need to know, right? And then I'm going to put guardrails, meaning that I'm only going to give you login access to this system or that system, and that access is curtailed so that you can't get yourself into trouble, right? And then you are part of this group doing this job, and over here, I'm going to teach a different team to do a different job. And then working it all together so that things are a lot less risk adverse, and you can monitor and understand, hey, this group needs more help because of how much they're doing. In this group, we can actually transfer one person to the other. It increases efficiency in that way. But more importantly, it allows the orchestrator, you being the manager to your use case, the ability to say, okay, well, I have this new journey that I need to support, and I already have these guys working as Legos, and I can connect these Legos together, and I can build a Millennium Falcon, and I can build a Death Star, right? It's the same Legos. And so that's why microservices, as I stated, has been such a huge impact into digital transformation to date. That's why I believe history is going to repeat itself for agionic solutions.
Yep.
So, how should it work? Well, like I said, you have this orchestrating virtual agent right in the middle that it understands the journey. So it says, hey, can I use points to book a vacation at Cancun? It would look at the loyalty agent that understand how points are used and the roles of how what points that they have and what are the rules to redeem them, right? And so it could find out, do you have enough points? And then the traveling agent that can do the booking of the travel system, the orchestrating agent can talk to those two agents to fulfill that request. And hey, can I send points to my spouse, right? You can just talk to the loyalty agent, right? So you can have multiple orchestration agents. You can have multiple different functional agents, and they work together to get the experience working.
One of the things that I'm seeing here is, well, not necessarily on the slide, but the key is that there are lots and lots of cutting edge technologies that are out there right now. So I'm going to speak more to the technical audience for a moment. If you're using code from, say, Python, which is the majority of what AI stuff is done in, one of the tools that's out there, and it's open source, and every coder should be out there using this and looking at it, but it's an open source piece of software. So I just wanted to make a quick call out to it. But go and check out Crew AI, and that is going to give you an open source framework, and literally it sets up the framework. Your orchestrator's already there, and then you say, here are your agents. And then these are the tasks that need to happen by whatever and whomever. And so programmatically now, things have gotten so much easier than they were just 5 months ago with this Crew AI that has just kind of broke it out onto the scenes. I keep seeing it here everywhere. I've even set it up and played with a few things, and it's really helpful. And if you're just starting out now, I'm not a developer. I know enough coding to be dangerous. Check out a derivative fork that is Visual Studio Code. It is called Cursor, and Cursor is essentially Visual Studio for all intents and purposes. But like Visual Studio Code, it has Copilot embedded into it. You can get the free version, but it's not really great. But the Crew, unfortunately or fortunately, has, again, it's just like Visual Studio. So your learning curve is going to be really, really minimal. But you do get a really great agentic AI piece to it, and it is an agent that helps you code. That's its job. But then when you use Crew AI for you to create what Sean has been illustrating in the last couple of slides, it allows you to execute on those types of steps. So that's for the technical audience. And if you're listening to this as leadership, pass that information that I just gave. Just remember two simple things. Check out Crew AI and check out Cursor, which is your new development environment to create these solutions, and go turn them loose, see what they can do. It's really, really fantastic stuff.
Excellent. So, then it comes down to how is this all going to shake out? I believe the impact of agentic AI is going to allow you to do that start small and grow large approach. So you will go through and start with a simple agent that does one thing. You'll create another agent that'll create another, and you'll have use case upon use case of all the AI agents. But if you build it in such a way so that you can orchestrate across agents, that incremental value will be able to drive a lot bigger outcomes. And that's really what everyone's looking at, is how can we get the bigger outcomes? Well, you get the bigger outcomes by starting small and growing large. I mean, this shouldn't be that surprising, David. Almost everything that, whether it be cloud and how cloud became such a powerful force, how microservices became such a powerful force, it all became with starting small and growing large.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about a little bit about industry specifics. Obviously, we can't talk about every industry, so I'll just randomly pick one that I know that you and I work on, or maybe not every day, but quite frequently, and that would be maybe anybody within the travel, transportation, energy, that type of stuff. Do you have any use cases on the top of your head that you could talk to about maybe situation or scenario based? And I'm going to give a quick plug to both Sean and I. Check us out on LinkedIn and hit us up about your industry. Both Sean and I have just about every industry covered and all of the different agentic use cases to have. Mm-hmm. So whatever we talk about here, if it has nothing to do with your industry, but you're still curious about how it might apply to your industry, reach out to either Sean or I. We're always definitely happy to help you on that. But anyway, back on topic, selfless plug, we'll get rid of that. What would be, say, let's just pick, I don't know, let me provide one to get us started, give you a framing. Let's do hotel automation.
Yeah.
More in the hospitality industry. How might some of the problems that are faced, it could be booking, it could be management, it could be all these different types of things, come up with an agentic way to where AI could be inserted into their current workflow, not boiling the ocean, but just what some of the pieces are that they could be used in that particular use case.
Yeah. So a lot of people, they're doing very specially concierge type AI, right? So when you talk to the AI, it knows your loyalty situation, and you would be talking directly to, you see it says loyalty virtual agent. You would talk to that. So again, this is for a loyalty platform, and one of the common intents that you may see with your CX journeys is people calling in or looking up, hey, what's my loyalty status? And maybe, what are my offers on my loyalty status to raise my status? Credit cards as an example, upselling. So having that agent in place, having the data, having the feedback from your customers will give you the confidence of saying, okay, let's see if we can do another agent. And that agent is going to be a booking agent where somebody can go through and say, hey, I want to go to Cancun with my wife next week. What are some of the offers that you have to sign me up and create an itinerary? And I'll create an itinerary. That's great. But then when you have those two agents and everybody's happy, they're going to ask you, like, wait a second, how do I book loyalty travel? Okay, well, then you would create an orchestration agent when you're booking so that it works through those two other agents. And so its action is to, phone a friend.
Yeah. Hey,
And that's kind of how I see the start small, grow large strategy is you solve one problem, and then, it becomes a domino effect.
yeah. I saw an article the other day about a leading hotel that was online, and they're moving towards this concept of what they call smart hotels. So imagine your traditional hotel that you love and maybe stay at. Imagine like the front desk is no longer there. I mean, they're there, but you don't use them in the traditional sense. It's essentially there as kind of a fallover, a manual backup type of scenario. But by and large, these smart hotels are working much like the B&B app that you have. And they go ahead and they book themselves. They know which room. The autonomous agent looks at their personal profile, their preference, their points, and it's constantly evaluating all of this. And not only does it have an orchestrating agent that does all of that, to Sean's earlier point, where he talked about, I forget how you phrased it, but something like agents of agents. And so these are orchestrating agents of orchestrating agents. So think about your chief executive officer and your C-suite in a corporation, and then you have your VPs, and then you have your directors, and then you have the doers or managers or whatever. And those layers, those are the agents of agents. And so as you start working towards this concept, the smart hotels, you've got one that's, dealing with awards and points and this and that and all these other things. So everything that Sean just talked about, those are the scenarios of agents and agents. And I don't know if you did it on purpose or whether it was by fluke, but you had mentioned something about being able to go out and do virtual travel. So you kind of touch base on two really interesting concepts, because I don't know if a lot of the people out there watching this have caught it, but essentially now we're talking about bleeding agents out of existing enterprises and cross enterprise, cross vertical, cross horizontal, however you want to phrase it. But now you have your agents as a company interacting with other third-party agents, and together all of them are orchestrating a user experience that is bar none to anything to the likes of which we've never seen before. And we're going to really, really see all of this come to fruition in the next 3 to 5 years, is my guess.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, so back to the start small, grow large to get that incremental value. The other thing that this solution allows you is multiple vendors. So right now, there are plenty of the hyperscalers which will offer you chatbot building capabilities. They're open source. There are point vendors. My company is one of it that has a great solution in this place. But most likely, you're going to have to deal with your vendor's chatbots. So let's say you have an expense management platform and you have to use their bot, So this allows you to maintain your control. And if you were to switch that vendor out, you can take their bot, put the other one in, point your orchestration bots to it, and everything's fine. Again, very much a copy and paste of microservices concept, so that you can have a best of breed or heterogeneous type of architecture. That kind of high level complexity is going to be necessary for high level experiences. But this pales into in comparison to what you have to do today, which is you pick up the phone, you talk to an outsourcer, put 50 developers on this, and stitch it all together. And when you want to change the experience, you rinse and repeat. So with AI being able to be flexible enough to have these communication paths, it means that you can be and have a high level of customization or complexity without the cost and maintenance that you would have seen in the past. So again, extremely valuable architecture here that you can support so many different things at a much smaller level of effort.
Yeah, and you have an item on here that I want to make a call out to everybody. Knowledge base, more value than ever. And so knowledge base, this touches base on an age-old problem that is rearing its ugly head and will continue for ever in 5 days, is dirty data creates garbage, and garbage in means garbage out. So I'm actually working through something right now that is similar to this. I have a plethora of data, and it's okay, but for the use case, it is having to be reworked, remassaged, and everything else. So as you're planning to do whatever it is that you're going to do in your company, do not glaze over the fact that your data may not quite be where you need it to be in order to get the outcome that you expect. So make sure you put a lot of buffering around there, or have some prerequisite meetings with your data team and saying, need to talk to the developers that are going to implement this solution, because they kind of know how they need to have the data in what format, and make sure that there's some compliance there, and then have them report back to you to figure out, hey, do we need to add an extra couple of weeks, months, whatever that might be, to make sure that you're accounting for all of that. So a lot of this here is about pointers, but I can tell you right now, that's more often than not is a sticking point where, as a leader, you're thinking, hey, we're just got to do these checks in the checkbox. But it's not until the devilish details come out when you're executing that you're caught by surprise. Like, what do you mean? We have all of this data. Why can't we just get to it? And well, that's why it's not in the best of shape to get you where you need to be. So just wanted to call that out real quick. Data cleaning. Definitely going to impact your outcome. And because AI is computer driven, it's like anything. The computers are dumb. Even all of these wonderful large language models, they're too helpful. And when they know that they don't have the knowledge, they hallucinate on purpose. They're like a dog. They want to just give you the best loving answer that they can give you. And when they don't have it, they'll just make stuff up for you. So that's not good either. In some cases, in creative outcomes, that's maybe not so bad. But when you are dealing with maybe medical or legal or any of those types of industries, you really need to make sure you have your data in order, because that is going to make a tremendous impact on whether or not you have a successful outcome.
Agreed. And so going back to the bots, are two things. Hopefully everybody knows the test. It is education and instructions. If you can't teach your people how to do the job, they can't do the job. If you teach them do it this way, and then you teach them do it that way, they may do it one way or the other, or they will do it a separate way randomly. So, your point on data, too much data, not a problem. Data from multiple different sources and silos, not a problem. But I'll tell you this, conflicting data, problem. Missing data, problem. When you say, okay, Mr. Employee, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 5, do that.
Yep.
You got to understand that, just because AI can be smart as a human means that it isn't smarter than a human. It cannot read your mind. As I tell all the time, it is math, not magic. AI is mathematics, not magic. So knowledge base. Now, guardrails and monitoring. So guardrails and monitoring should be hand in hand. If all you security people out there, and you know who you are, they know this above all else. You need to put guardrails in place on anything. You use SSL certificates. You run checking for it, right? And at the end of the day, is you take all the logs of whatever people experienced in the experience, and then you run an algorithm in there to see what people are doing and how people are experiencing it, and you check, triple check, right? Now, if you have guardrails at a top level that does everything, you're going to have conflicting guardrails. Remember I said the problem with knowledge is when you conflict, this is a significant issue. Monitoring is the same way. It's really hard to stitch together an end-to-end experience. But the beauty of this is you can monitor at each agent level. You can have guardrails at each agent level. So together, this is what Agentic AI is going to look like in 2025. And I believe before the end of this year, everybody's going to see in the news somewhere this coming to fruition. Now, what does this mean for you? And there's 3 things that I'm recommending you think about when you go down and you buy or rent or build an AI agent. You want to make sure the AI agent will play well with others. What's its input? What's its output? We talked about this the other day, right, David? SDKs, right? Being able to connect these together are so important, right? What out of the box agents does it ship with? If it goes through and gives you a gaggle of agents, hey, you got more Legos. I can tell you this from personal experience. My kids love the 1,000-piece Lego kits more than the 50-piece Lego kits, right? And you should be feeling that same kind of emotion. The more you have to play with, the more you can get done in the time frame that you have. You will never get more money or more time, right? But if you can get more functionality for the money and for the time, that will accelerate you forward. And it'll prevent you from creating technical debt, which is what this approach is all about. Last but not least, you want to make sure it's easy to use, easy to configure, and more importantly, easier to maintain.
Well, the problem with more Legos is, as parents, we get them stuck in our feet because
exactly
they're left on the ground. But I also wanted to touch base on your last point, just to give people a quick pointer, especially when they're doing some architecture. And for leaders listening, make sure that your security team is checking this as just diligent, not that you are, micromanaging them, but it doesn't hurt to ask questions. So unfortunately, people don't know things until they know them. And here's some quick, tough lessons that I've learned along the way in the last 6 to 8 months. And that is, as you do and flesh out your security, make sure that your API, SDKs, and endpoints, you have 2 zones, an internal zone and an external zone. That way, any data leakage will not happen, because your external is always focused on, is the data secure? Should the data being presented to the outside or outside the org be in the way that it shouldn't be, right? It gets people thinking in this way, the developers in that way. The chance of data bleed over is much less than creating one interface and then having some API calls meant to be public. You're going to wind up really burning yourself up really, really bad. Separate the concerns, external zone, internal zone. The other thing that people forget is that when they're creating agentic solutions, there's this part that has to come in where they're providing knowledge bases. As they provide the knowledge base, they have to point it to a data source. Typically, a data source might be I'll just throw this out, a SQL server. The SQL server has encryption. It's data at rest. The problem is, as the process of ingesting data into the knowledge base, into the architecture of whatever it's going to be in the LLM, or you're providing supplemental data, you have to embed that data, vectorize that data, and then store it off in a vector database or something like that. this is something that typically only happens one time because it's part of your data ingestion process. But in order to get to the data, you have to grab the data, decrypt the data, read it, vectorize it, and then it gets stored off in vectors. And there's a handful of issues here. Typically, those systems do some logging. And while it's logging, that data that was encrypted that's at rest is now in the logs or can show up in the logs in an unencrypted manner. And so this is a huge vulnerability that often gets overlooked. And because it's not part of the normal workflow, the security teams may accidentally overlook it because it was part of the ingestion process and people don't think about it. But now you have a lurking log. I don't know what the life cycle or lifetime of that log is, but you've got sensitive data in rest unencrypted. That breaks that rule set. And it's very easy to have happen. So as you're doing these one-offs, especially when you're doing agentic agents and you have a high security requirement in your organization, these are the areas that get a little sketchy to where you need to be cognizant and making sure that, hey, this is a vulnerability. Let's add this to the process. Even though it's one time, trust me, it will burn you so badly. Just make sure you get in front of that before that happens.
And I want to make a call out to all the different comments today. Thanks so much from the different sources. Please reach out with ideas. We love to talk about these different concepts, and we're thought leaders like you all should be. And we're really interested in hearing your ideas. And for you digital transformers out there, please reach out. We'd love to have you on the pod.
Absolutely. Just popped up a link. Visit us on transformationleaderspodcast.com. And also you can check us out on LinkedIn. We have a group up there. And then Sean and I obviously have our individual profiles. But that's it for this show. We'll see you next Wednesday, every Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.